Thank you very much. I would not say presenters, I would rather say players. So I would welcome the players on stage, not to work, but to play. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are in the last part of our panel, our discussion. So it will be the panel discussions with our last presenters, Sachin, Joel, Olivier, and Samuel. So there will be some questions which I'll be putting to our distinguished panelists. And afterwards, I will open up for questions from the floor. So the first question I will put to Sachin, right? Two questions, maybe. Just one tied with one another. So we've seen a lot about smart cities in Mauritius. We've seen a lot about the work, live, work, and play concept. So maybe briefly, Sachin, could you please explain to us, you explained about the smart city concept. So does the concept exist elsewhere? And if so, what are the main differences? Quite briefly, right? And also, you've spoken about residency, citizenship, etc. So maybe you can touch on all these with regards to what other countries have in terms of smart cities.
Yeah. So first of all, the smart cities in Mauritius, we can say, is different from other smart cities in the sense that these are greenfield developments. The smart cities are being developed on large-scale development, and these development, as I said previously, it's a hub to attract more industries, to attract startups, to attract companies in artificial intelligence, to attract companies that are in schools, in universities, companies that will be able to push Mauritius to that high-income country. So first of all, it's a master plan development. The second element in the smart cities, I would say it's about the heavy use of technology over and above the real estate development. Here I mean the use of IT technology. The second point will be to use technology like sensors, Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, blockchain technology to make those cities smart. Because at the end of the day, most important of all is to improve the quality of life of the people who are living in a smart city. When we talk about ICT and Internet of Things, most important of all is about the exchange of data, about having the cloud computing. And this is where we are borrowing from other smart cities like we have in Barcelona, we have in Paris, in London, where they are using sensors, cloud computing, IoT to be able to gather information and then use this information to improve traffic flow in cities, to manage traffic on a real-time basis, to forecast weather, and also to provide information to the citizens about how they can reduce energy, how they will be able to proper manage the city in terms of urban management, tax collection, and all these. So our smart city is a combination of greenfield investment and then use all the real estate that we have, add it with the best-in-class that we have in foreign cities, and develop our own smart city. The second point is the smart city in Mauritius are regulated, so government introduced a package of incentives and the smart city scheme. And this smart city scheme provides a number of incentives, both fiscal and non-fiscal. And when we talk about residency and citizenship, it's about merging what we have for the whole jurisdiction, so anyone coming in the country, they get an occupation permit, residence permit, work permit. So smart cities benefit all these. But in addition to that, what we've done is we added what we had in the integrated resort scheme, the IRS and the RES. Anyone buying a property above 500,000 USD, they are provided de facto with the acquisition a residence permit for them and their family, and this is for so long as they own the property. So this bit has been introduced under the Smart City scheme, so anyone buying an apartment above 500,000 USD, they get residency. Anyone can come and buy property in a Smart City scheme. You know, Mauritius, we are a small country and we are very restrictive in terms of acquisition of property. For the past few years, there have been major derogation and inroad made for non-citizens to buy property in Mauritius. And to acquire properties, The smart city scheme allows non-citizens to come and buy property. So this is a major derogation provided to buy property for residential purpose and also to buy property for business purposes. And these people, when they buy property, if it is less than 500,000 USD, they get multiple entry visa, and multiple entry visa for 5 years, which means that when they come, they can live for 6 months even without a residence permit. They are given a tourist visa, a business visa, maximum 6 months a year. So this is in terms of residency provided under the smart city schemes. And most important of all these are not in guidelines, but in regulations and in the Immigration Act and in all the different statutes that we have in Mauritius that provide the certainty that investors look for.
Thank you very much, Sachin. Maybe I would like to add something, just crossed my mind, because we're talking with Sunil of the Stock Exchange before. So insofar as residency is concerned in Mauritius, if a foreigner invests to the tune of 500,000 USD in a listed stock at an IPO, initial public offering, he does or she does have the same benefit of 10-year residency in Mauritius, right, Pia? So now I would like to turn to our developers of the free smart city projects in Mauritius. So maybe one question I would like to ask with regards to, up to now, up to where your projects have reached, so at what stage of development or what sort of challenges are you facing with? So if you could please, each one of you give us a sort of brief outline of where your projects stand and what sort of timing, etc. Maybe we can start with Samuel.
Thank you. Yes. Maybe for Mocha, for example, the ENL group is developing Mocha for now more than 10 years. So we are now very, very happy to already have in Mocha medical facilities, education facilities, residential facilities, sports activities, retail. So I think we now already have the appropriate environment for international headquarters to be interesting to invest in Mauritius. More than the fiscal or legal incentives Mauritius has to offer, I think the lifestyle package is now already there in Mocha. We are very excited about it, and the smart city scheme will give us a momentum to accelerate. So I think we now have some business opportunities in those smart cities. I would say, as Mauritius positioning itself as a hub for healthcare, for education, tertiary education, the emergence of a fintech industry in Mauritius. So I think there's a lot more business opportunities that will accelerate the development of a city.
In fact, it's working. Yeah. In fact, the Smart City scheme was launched only 3 years ago. And all of us, we've started the development a while back. In fact, you need to go back to 2005 and the end of the sugar agreements with European unions. These agreements with European unions allowed Mauritius to sell its sugar with no quotas and with a preferred price to the European markets. And at the end of these agreements, it meant a major drop in turnover for all of us. In fact, we were sugar cane companies. Medin, for example, created in 1911, and monoproduct in a monoproduct company in 2005 had a drop of 30% in its turnover. So for the company to keep existing, we had to diversify, and it was logical for a big landowner to start doing property development. So now Medin has 15,000 square meters of offices. We have 10,000 square meters of shopping center. We have schools, we have universities, we have sports center, and we're planning on doing residential quite soon.
Yes, hello. Yes, as Olivier was saying, with each of our groups has decided over the past few years to really make real estate one of the fer de lance, as we say in French, of our respective groups. In Beauplan, we were probably the last to get started, but that's because good things take time to happen. And today, Beauplan is not really a greenfield project. There's already things happening in Beauplan. We've got a business park, 6,000 square meters of business park. On Monday this week, we inaugurated the first phase of the African Leadership College, which today houses around 480 students, mostly from Africa, from 32 different countries in Africa. We're starting the building of our retail, 7,000 square meters of retail in the first quarter of next year, as well as some more office space. And we'll be launching some residential as well, I would say probably mid of next year. So it's definitely all the wheels are in motion, and I think each of our projects is attracting more and more attention.
Thank you very much. One thing about, we've talked about investments being rooted in our first panel discussion. We've seen investment rooted from Mauritius into Africa, etc. So that's another thing. So rooting investments through Mauritius into Africa. Now we're talking rooting investments from Africa or the rest of the world into Mauritius, into smart cities. So have you been targeting what types of investors? Are you aware that your group, your company, are being targeting in terms of attracting the investors to invest in those smart cities? Could you just briefly give us a sort of, from each one of you, a sort of a flavor of what sort of plans or projects or you have in mind? Very briefly.
Yes, maybe to repeat a bit what I was trying to mention. I think we obviously have some real estate development opportunities. So foreign real estate developers could have in Mauritius the appropriate legal framework, and they could themselves have access to the African market, being specialized developers into medical facilities, or we could even attract, and there's a few European universities being implemented in Unicity and targeting the African students that want to study in Mauritius rather than in Europe, where it's much more expensive. So we also have fiber optic connectivity with submarine cables, 3 submarine cable connecting Mauritius. So there's a few data centers getting implemented in Mauritius from foreign investment. So there's a few niche markets, I would say, and obviously the basics, offices and residential big developments.
I think what's important to understand is that we are real estate developers, and our primary function is to create an environment which is prone and which will encourage people in all the different live, work, and play contexts that we talked about to come and invest in each of our projects. I think today Mauritius is strategically placed as a real gateway between Africa and Asia. And we've got a huge potential to attract people across many of these different activities. And our primary vocation being real estate development, our priority will not be to operate these activities. And it's more to find the right operators to come into our projects and to operate each of these different activities.
You want to add something, Olivier?
Nothing to add. I mean, Samuel and Joel, they have covered everything. Yeah.
Thank you very much. So let's continue with Sachin. Sachin, you stand in the shoes of the regulator par excellence, I would say, as opposed to the operators on the one side, and we have investors here, potential investors, yeah. And insofar, you talk about the ICT infrastructure, which is, I think, a critical element of smart city projects, even though I heard Samuel speak about the green technology, you have to remain green, but you have this ICT element, which is very important. So in terms of an ICT partner with whom smart city developer would tie in order to manage the project, etc. I've just listed some points, like you have to have the right appropriate relationship management, setting up of the right processes, integrating systems, etc., that one talks to one another. appropriate controls, that's very important. So what do you have in mind more than what I've just said, or could you briefly comment on what I've just said?
So when I said the smart city scheme, it's regulated, which means what we want all developers to ensure that at the end of the day, the projects do not just stay as a real estate project, but it graduates into a smart city. And what makes a smart city really smart, I think Olivier had the definition of a smart city, where we have energy use, and at the end of the day, the quality of the life of the people that has to be improved. IT is one thing that is very important in all smart cities. For me, when we talk about information technology, and in smart cities, it boils down to the Internet of Things, or in the Internet of everything. Everything has to be connected. And when everything is connected, the government, the state, has to provide a system of cloud computing where anyone can go and pick up information. So at our level, we want to provide that cloud computing system where all information from sensors can be collected by startups. And we want the smart cities to become true centers where you have incubators and accelerators. Startups can come in and develop solutions for the smart cities. And when they develop the smart city solution, it's not only for Mauritius, for Unicity, for Mocha City, for Terra, and for the others. It's mainly about developing those solutions for export to Africa. So we want to see these startups to expand and to grow. And when we talk about IT, again, we talk in terms of how we can make those cities intelligent. We have in Mauritius the Safe City project, which is being done by Huawei. It's a project of 3 billion rupees. At the end of the day, it will be 18 billion rupees. What the Safe City project, it's about installing around 4,800 cameras in Mauritius. And these are not just safety cameras. It's about cameras fit with sensors that can collect information in terms of weather, information for traffic management, information about those not respecting traffic rules, so they can find those people. And most important of all, providing real-time information, so you can route your traffic in case of congestion. How you can manage your energy use, how you can ensure that you can protect crime, and also ensure that you can repair whatever breakdowns are in the public domain. So these are a bit about the Safe City project. And at the end of the day, with the smart cities, the Safe City project, and the program that we are putting in with the urban regeneration scheme, we want all the cities and towns in Mauritius to graduate themselves into smart cities. The whole idea, I said in my presentation, to make the whole island of Mauritius smart, to bring startups companies, innovative startups, so that they can also become exporters. So this is the whole strategy of smart cities. It's not just, as I said, real estate, but also ensuring that we create an ecosystem for young budding entrepreneurs. We have an ecosystem that it's good to have all kinds of businesses, from IT, artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, cloud computing, data recovery centers, data centers. You go to schools, to those providing theaters, the play, and the live concept. We know Mauritius, we are highly congested, so we should be able to remove the congestion with the light railway system. People working in Unicity, they should be able to live in Unicity and have all the activities over there, same in Terra, same in Medin. So this is the ultimate objective with the smart cities.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think you've put your finger in the right thing in the sense that it's not a real estate thing. It's like a sort of package which brings in life, work, play, and other concepts also. I tried to do like a sort of acronym with this word SMART. I had like S for sun, C, like M for Mauritius, of course, right? A for air, alive, R for relax, and T for toy, and I could not find any word for work. So it's work across, yeah. So just turning to the, I think, I'll ask this question to Samuel, right? You know, for investments in real estate, Mauritius, be it in Africa or elsewhere, there are some generic criteria that investors, when they will evaluate investments, will be looking at. Of course, you sit at the end of the wagon, in the sense that you provide the infrastructure, you provide all the facilities, in the sense that you would attract investors, but to buy into your smart city project. So what do you think in terms of what sort of criteria will they rest upon insofar as the peculiarities of this smart city project in Mauritius is concerned?
Thanks. I think there's two things. The first one is that we are now getting some records of the previous investment done. So we have some yield that we are now being quite sure of achieve in our developments. And the second thing is the legal framework. When foreign investors put their money in real estate in Mauritius, the legal framework is directly inspired, as Sachin was saying, from the French Code Napoleon. So they benefit from some legal model called in French the VEFA and the GFA, which is financial warranties that the project will go to completion. And for us to be able to get them that guarantee, we need to have a certain level of pre-sales or pre-letting. So what's important for us is to achieve that pre-sales level, and we need to have a market for our offers. The other thing is when selling serviced land, we now have in place, like in South Africa, in most places of South Africa, some design review committees which themselves assure that the development being constructed on the site respects some architectural guidelines and some technical guidelines, and to ensure the homogeneity of a global precinct.
Thank you, Samuel. Maybe as you're talking about this particular issue, maybe I would turn to Joël about funding, because funding, I think, in every investment project, funding is a crucial part. You may get it right at the start, but afterwards it may be financially not viable, right? So in terms of your specific projects, without revealing, in fact, your boss will be running off to you afterwards. You do have plans, of course, but we just want to know what sort of plans in terms of financing of projects, in general terms, that you would have.
Thank you. It's important to understand that behind each of our three projects, there are three large Mauritian conglomerates, groups that have their roots in the sugar industry, as Olivier was saying a bit earlier, and that have since diversified their operation into many different sectors on the island. So these are groups today that are well diversified, well structured, and which own huge land banks as well. So I would say that today, each of our respective groups has got the ability to finance and to raise capital. At the same time, the smart city projects are supposed to be self-financing. So through sale of land inside the projects themselves, we will raise capital to finance the infrastructure required inside the projects. And then, obviously, we will also welcome influx of capital from investors across different sectors of each of our projects. So the finance will come from a variety of different sources, but we've got the right structure in place and the right backing in each of our groups to self-finance our projects to a large extent.
Thank you, Joël. Maybe a last question from me, and then we'll pass on to the floor, addressed to Sachin. As you know, Sachin, as opposed to the generic model of real investments spanning up across multiple jurisdictions, we've heard about cross-border investments. So in terms of economic, legal, tax, and regulatory environments, so both insofar as the smart city concept is concerned, over both the development and post-development stages. So what do you think the smart city developers have to bear in mind specifically in terms of achieving their objectives in the parameters that have been set by the government?
Okay. First of all, when we talk the smart cities, and you see in the regulations again, the first line in the regulation, it talks about the objectives. And the 4 objectives that have been set by government for the smart cities is to have a coherent master plan for good land use management, second point. Third point, to ensure that you have the work, live and play concept to reduce commuting time in the country. And the 4th element is to ensure that it brings to economic development. Economic development, it means that we want the country to graduate to a high-income economy. And to be able to achieve that, we need these projects to be implemented within a reasonable time frame, because these are large-scale projects spanning over 10 to 20 years. We want these projects to be implemented in such a way that they don't kill each other. One of the risks that we see from our side is government has provided the incentives, but projects are not incentives driven, projects are demand driven. So that's why we need to create the demand to ensure that we are able to attract multinationals to come and acquire land, invest, and operate in the smart cities. Regional headquarters, those companies investing into Africa, Chinese companies, Indian companies, European companies, American companies, investing, not only use Mauritius for capital restructuring, but also to set up their regional headquarters in Mauritius and do all the back office operation, legal operation, accountancy, warehousing, marketing, HR, use Mauritius as an arbitration center in case of litigation. So if they are able to do all these, the smart cities will be able to get business, and the country will be able to create a demand for the smart cities. We cannot just rely on the captive market, otherwise there will be a siphoning. We don't want businesses to move from Eben and to go to Mocha, from Port Louis to Beauplan, or to the south. So we want to create incremental business. So this is very important, to be able to attract new businesses. That's why we are doing all these roadshows. Government on its side is providing attractive incentives, certainties, reforming, ensure that we provide business facilitation measures to investors. We aim to be among the top 10 countries in terms of doing business. So in terms of what we want to achieve in the smart cities, all these to be fully developed, to create the demand. And on one thing that we are working on is to ensure that we create a consumer society to attract people. And for that, it's an open economy. We want to give work permit, residence permit, attract people to work, live in the country, attract retirees to come and consume in the country, maximum retirees. So this is on one aspect we are working. At the end of the day, we say that we will be able to say that the smart cities have performed if they have been able to fully developed, have people who stay over there, not just become a ghost town. So we want them to be like that. We want these smart cities to have ICT embedded in them, to have open data so that the startups can come and use those data, do data analytics and supply information so that we can create business out of it. Data analytics by itself is a big business. Artificial intelligence we have been talking about. If we're able to have information and insight in all the projects, the whole of Mauritius, we can say that the smart cities could be drivers of new businesses. We can say that we've succeeded. We can say that we have succeeded if we can ensure that through the smart cities we are able to reduce our energy consumption, and the smart cities are self-sufficient in terms of energy, water, and waste management. If they're able to manage the traffic flows, the urban flows in real time, we can say that we have been successful. And most important, if you have been able to improve the quality of the life of people, the citizens living in those smart cities by using smart technology, smart planning, and the new urbanism, and also the master plan and the objectives and the philosophy put in place by the different smart cities. Each smart cities are different in terms of their location, but most important, they have a same unicity, university, mixed use, high-tech, technology. So all smart cities have a theme, and if we're able to differentiate and demarcate, we can ensure that there won't be cannibalization, one killing the other.
Thank you very much, Sachin. Maybe before I pass on to the floor, maybe I would like concluding remarks, like a short sentence from you. So what sort of message, Samuel, Joël, Olivier, would you like to convey to the floor, to the audience? So what sort of message? One line, just a message to say that you're welcome to come to Mauritius, you want to come to places, so I leave it to you.
From my side, I would say that the main thing to understand is that Mauritius is changing, and that smart cities are appropriate environments to welcome and to continue to open up to the world.
Me, I'll just say that we're looking for partners, we're looking for investors, we're looking for people with network, and that's why we're here. So we'd be glad to welcome you in Mauritius and start working with you guys.
I think it's about finding the right people, the exceptional people that will add value and will come and play with us in Mauritius.
So thank you very much. So I would like to invite the floor for questions.
So I don't, yeah, thank you. I've got a loud voice. So I'm from, yeah, so I'm from Mauritius. I don't have a question. I just want to make a statement. I think we've all spoken about the ease of doing business in Mauritius and what are the incentives. I think one other thing that Mauritius has, and which is very particular to Mauritius, is that we have different cultures in Mauritius, different ethnicities in Mauritius, and that also, anyone investing in Mauritius makes them feel at ease. They don't feel like they're in a different country, so they do feel at home with that. And in addition to that, we have multi-languages. So in Mauritius, we speak English, we speak French, Indian languages. So I think that as well is a very positive thing that we Mauritius have to offer for people investing. Thank you.
So is it a question or?
It's just a statement.
Oh, it's a statement.
Yeah.
And are you from Mauritius?
I'm from Mauritius.
Originally,
I'm from
no.
Mauritius, yes. I'm
Originally?
Mauritian. Yes.
You seem to come from like an Indian accent. Because,
yes,
you know,
because all of our parents are from India.
Yeah, I myself, I hail from
And,
India.
yeah.
But it's good to know, you know why? Because
Yes.
that's a sort of example,
Yes.
clear case study, where people from many parts of the world have migrated to India. So not to Mauritius, from India, from Europe, from Africa, everywhere. So it's a place where everybody can come
Correct.
to live, work and play, of course.
Correct. Thank you.
Okay, mine is a question. Does the smart city replace all the previous property development schemes that had been promulgated before, i.e. the IRS, the PDS, all of those? And secondly, I presume smart city certificates are issued against a master plan presented. So if we had to add up all the smart city certificates that have been issued to date, what are we talking about in terms of bulk? And within that, is there still a portion set aside for foreigners to come and live? Because I would imagine primarily you're looking at Mauritians filling the smart cities.
So 3 questions, huh? Oh, 2 and a half. So the first question is about the different scheme, PDS, IRS, ERS, etc. And your second question was about? Oh, okay. The sort of summation, yeah. So maybe the first question would be, you'd like Sachin?
Okay. In 2002, government came up with an integrated resort scheme. We had 10 projects. Up to now, some 1,800 iOS units have been sold. There remains around 300 units more to be sold. And the iOS companies that have been given a certificate, the certificates are still valid, and this project will continue to be iOS, but no new iOS certificates will be issued. The second scheme, the real estate scheme that was introduced in 2007, we have 72 projects, 72 certificates issued. The majority of the projects have been completed. More than 1,600 units sold. There are some 150 units to be sold under the OES, and these are being developed and are being sold. Those that have the certificates are being grandfathered. These certificates will continue to exist. And those who've bought, they will continue to enjoy the status of having bought under the iOS or the OES. The non-citizen, they will continue to have their residency. If they sell the property, they can sell it to another non-citizen who will all benefit those schemes. The iOS and the OES have been replaced by a new scheme, property development scheme, which means that someone that wants to do a similar project like iOS, OES, they can do so. They apply to the Economic Development Board, they get the certificate, they enjoy the same benefits iOS, OES, that is to develop residential units with other facilities, amenities, and sell these to foreigners. And these foreigners, when they buy, they get their residency with a family. And also the right to own a property in Mauritius, to sell those properties whenever they like, it's a liquid asset. And also to put them on rental, and those subsequent buyers also, they will enjoy and get residency. So the PDS. The Smart City Scheme is a new scheme that has not replaced the iOS or OES or PDS. It's a new scheme with the object of putting Mauritius on another scale of development, or having planned development, a master plan. Your question, whether we give a certificate based on a master plan, these projects are very rigid. They've passed 3 stages, letter of comfort, letter of intent, and a certificate. And they know how complicated it is to be able to get those certificates. And these certificates, before it's given, it is approved by the Cabinet of Ministers. So it means that they will have to convince in terms of the master plan, their marketing research, in terms of their thinking of businesses that they can attract, in terms of financing. All the financing, there was a question, the financing model is simple, free financing model. Equity, which could be cash or kind, where they bring the land as an apport capital, so they bring the land, or it's proceeds of sale, or it's from debt financing. In all, we have 12 smart city projects, 10 already approved, 2 new projects that we've got, we will have to consider. When we see, in terms of residential units, we have some 20,000 residential units. 50% of these units are meant for sale to Mauritians, the remaining 50% to non-citizens, to foreigners. If we see the 10,000 units that we have to sell to foreigners, and if we compare, we extrapolate from the iOS OES that we've sold, then the number of units sold, it stands around 3,000 units over a period of 10 years, roughly the propensity of sale 300 units. It will take 10 to 20 years to sell all these units. That's why at the level of the Economic Development Board, one point we say country branding, we want to diversify the market. Look for more buyers, not only from France or South Africa. The share, the 3,000 units that have been sold, 55% are French buyers, some 30% to 35% South African buyers, and the remaining is shared among. So we need to diversify our market. Look for Chinese, Indian, Middle East investors, more European, other countries, maybe the Middle East, Russian, and also the high net worth individuals in Africa. Same for commercial facilities, more than 500 square meters of facilities that will be developed. Office spaces, so we need to have those regional headquarters, and we have a value proposition for them. We see Singapore is becoming very expensive for regional headquarters, and they are moving to other jurisdictions. And we are saying that these regional multinationals, they are looking for alternate jurisdiction, and Mauritius being one of them. We were with the Prime Minister of Mauritius in China, and Chinese investors are looking for Mauritius. After the visit of the Chinese president to Mauritius, they are looking, those Chinese multinationals, to set up base in Mauritius. And we have a strong value proposition for them because the smart cities are already serviced, which means they can come straight away, have their facilities, buy land, get electricity, water. They can build those facilities for them. So the value proposition is there. So we need to be able to attract those companies to Mauritius. And our aim is by 2023, we should be able to achieve our GDP per capita of more than 13,500 to be able to reach that stage. So our aim is ambitious, and we work under the 2030 vision of government. So I think I answered your question.
Thank you. Very elaborate response from Sachin. Do you want to add something to that? It's okay.
I think it was very elaborate, so nothing more.
Okay, thank you. So can we have one last question?
Hi there, I've got two separate questions. My first one's for Sachin. I want to ask, you kept mentioning about wanting to encourage startups within Mauritius, within these smart cities. So what I wanted to ask you was, have you already started the incubators and the accelerators, or is that something that's still in the process? And is that something that you're also looking for from foreigners for investment, or is that something to attract foreign startups?
So again, I'll go, when we crafted the regulations, one of the requirements for them to get the certificate, they need to have incubators and accelerators. The smart cities have to be a place, ecosystem for new industries, for new startups to come in place. Samuel will talk, they have set up Turbine, which is an incubator that will help new startups in terms of financing, getting angel investors, mentors. So these they will have to put in place. So the ecosystem has to be in there. Second point, we want to have R&D centers, research facilities. We are talking with Huawei, China, for them to transfer the R&D center to Mauritius, because in China, when they have the R&D center, they bring people from all over the world. What we want to propose to them, that when you come to Mauritius, we've talked about the lifestyle, we've talked about the different people from different regions of the world, they've come. So the quality of life is there, so they will feel at home if you have people from India coming to Mauritius and working in our R&D center for Huawei. So these centers have to be in place. In terms of facilities that we are providing at the level of the Economic Development Board, last year the occupation permit rules were amended. Instead of someone, a professional, earning a salary of 60,000 rupees to be able to get an occupation permit, for a startup, for an innovative startup, if they get a salary of 35,000 Mauritian rupees, straight away they get residency. The investor, instead of investing and showing he has 100,000 USD as startup capital to get an investor permit and an occupation permit to stay in Mauritius, with just 30,000 USD and an idea of a startup, innovative startup, straight away he gets an occupation permit to live and work in the country, and also the facilities to import labor from overseas to work in those startups. They can also acquire property for business purposes. They also provided 8-year tax holiday. All startups in Mauritius, innovative startups, they are provided 8-year tax holiday on their income. And lastly, on any equipment or technology they are investing, they are provided with exemptions on duty and VAT that they can recover when they purchase those units. So government is providing these incentives, and smart cities are providing the infrastructure, like we have turbine that Samuel will just talk to you.
Okay, Samuel, will you
Yes,
talk briefly on that?
a few words on turbine. So Mocha City hosts the La Turbine incubator. So we already have a few startups incubated there. We are trying to create the ecosystem. Two things to note, maybe. La Turbine is in partnership with a Stockholm incubator. So we're trying to create bridges between startups in Mauritius and what's going on in Europe. And the second thing important to note is that we promote an open data strategy for the data that the city will create. And a few startups are seeing the smart city as a territory of experimentations for new apps, for example. So we are quite keen. It's only the beginning, but we are getting there.
Just a final point.
Sure.
In the last budget,
So we'll conclude with Sachin's point.
In the last Mauritian budget, we set up an artificial intelligence council, and Mauritius, we want to attract these type of companies in blockchain technology, in financial, fintech, prop tech, in R&D centers. So I think one of our strategies is truly to help these companies to set up and have startup boot camps in Mauritius.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I added a second part of my question. Is that okay?
Can you repeat it, please?
So the second part of my question, which was for Samuel, Olivier, and Joel, which I think has kind of already been answered, but I was going to ask, has the smart technology been developed already for within the city that you're using to collect the data? Or is that something that you're still in the process of?
Sorry, I did not understand very well.
I'm asking, has the technology already been developed and implemented within your smart cities that you're already going to use to collect data?
No, not really. We just finalized our data strategy, let's say. We're going for a proof of concept this month on connected parking solutions. We'll have smart meters, water and electricity smart meters that will be on in 6 months' time. So the first data will be on by that time, and we're trying to compile everything on a mobile app. We are also working on street lighting, connected street lighting. So things are happening.
All right, thank you so much.
Joël or Olivier?
At Unicity, we're finalizing the whole master plan in terms of smart object and really the smart city. We've worked with foreign consultants on this subject, and we're waiting for their conclusion. We've, like I said in my presentation, short-term objectives, medium-term objectives, and long-term objectives to make sure that we have the proper things in place within the city. But we've just completed let's say the master plan, and we'll be starting to implement technology within the next few months.
We're at a bit the same stage as Unicity, in that we're working on all the solutions at the moment with experts, and then finalizing a plan that will be implemented as the project progresses, obviously, on all these different aspects of the solutions, smart solutions for the smart cities.
So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us until late, I would say. So thank you for your attention. And a big round of applause for our 4 panelists and players and speakers and presenters. Thank you very much.